Hey everybody, what's going on? Jeremy from the Independence Channel. Welcome to another episode of Real Truth. Today we're going to be focusing on the infiltration of independent and alternative media by corporation and corporate-driven propagandists like Don Lemon. Today we're going to be focusing on Don Lemon's interview with Elon Musk that occurred about a week ago, and I want to give some prime examples by highlighting certain takes from the interview and kind of going over them a little bit, just to show that for years I've been saying that this was going to happen. If these people really had their credibility as independent journalists while working for CNN, Fox News, NBC, ABC, CBS, NPR, PBS, all of these are state-run propaganda centers. And I've been saying it for many years. That's the main reason why I started this channel to begin with and put my own personal and professional life at stake by talking about the truth, by exposing all of this bullcrap hypocrisy that is going on. And Don Lemon is going to prove himself worthy of being the center of attention for this video. But before we do that, I am just going to show a little bit of what has infiltrated our Congress and Senate. Hank Johnson, a current representative from the state of Georgia. This was many years ago when he claimed that an island might capsize. It might capsize in the ocean if it were overpopulated. These people run our country, folks, in Congress. Do you understand this? Enjoy the hypocrisy, enjoy the stupidity first, and then we'll get into the hypocrisy.
Short-range and intermediate-range nuclear weapons onto those armored columns coming into Eastern and Western Europe. Boom! ICBMs get launched by Russia or by the U.S. Everybody's dead. Okay? Listen to you goddamn dumbasses in Congress. Islands don't float, and you cannot shoot down the Russian aircraft in a sovereign country they were invited into on their doorstep while they're fighting Al-Qaeda, murdering Christians by the hundreds of thousands.
Dimensions, but to your point, sir, I think Guam is a small island.
Very small island and about 24 miles, if I recall, long. So 24 miles long, about 7 miles wide at the least widest place on the island, and about 12 miles wide on the widest part of the island. And I don't know how many square miles that is. Do you happen to know?
I don't have that figure with me, sir. I can certainly supply it to you if you'd like.
Yeah, my fear is that the whole island will become so overly populated that it will tip over and capsize.
We don't anticipate that. The Guam population, I think, currently about 175,000, and again, with 8,000 Marines and their families, it's an addition of about 25,000 more into the population.
The whole island will become so overly populated that it will tip over and capsize.
All right, and so with the stupidity out of the way, I'd like to get into the thick of the interview between Don Lemon and Elon Musk, during which time Don Lemon, straight out of the playbook of corporate propaganda, uses the word Trump. How many times? I want people to count. Actually, go watch in full context the full interview. How many times within the first 12 minutes of this roughly 1 hour interview does he use the word Trump? And ask the same question about Trump throughout the first 12 minutes of the interview, and then how many times he actually repeats questions over and over and over throughout the course of the interview, even though he gets an answer, to continue to repeat and repeat and repeat and repeat. What did Joseph Goebbels say about repeating things, or Hitler in Mein Kampf about repeating a lie enough times? It becomes reality. It becomes a truth. Even if the lie is too big, it can't possibly be a lie. They are. This is propaganda. How many times Don Lemon uses identity to pander to the viewer's emotions and thus be able to predict their behavior. It's called mind control. All right. This is trauma-based mind control. When you use people's external identities, whether it be your gender, who you prefer to have sex with, who you determine you are, whether you're male or female, who you determine you are on your own, or your political identity, or the identity of victimhood. How many times does Don Lemon revert back to victimhood, and how does he contradict himself? These are some of the things that need to be highlighted in this interview. It's as if he never left CNN, which leads me down a path that I'm going to have to identify eventually. Did he actually leave CNN, or is this, getting to the point, is this an infiltration of corporate media into the alternative media and independent media world, by which they pose as independent minds when in reality they are still pushing their same propaganda narratives by using identities, external identities. Remember that the Nazis did this in the 30s and 40s, by which they used the intersectionality of identities and then pit these groups. They group them into certain identity groups and then used media to propagandize people to demonize certain groups, and then they went at it with each other. This is the division of a society and a general mass population. All right. Is this what's going on? We have to think about this with Megyn Kelly. We have to think about this with Tucker Carlson, who left Fox News. Even though he appears to be doing more of the righteous thing, I see right through his propaganda at times. He is still a well-polished corporate propagandist in my view. And there is no worse propagandist. Chris Cuomo's another example. He's doing it now. He's stepping foot into the alternative media realm and really making a footprint. And it's unfortunate because he is as disgusting as it gets, as is this Don Lemon interview with Elon Musk. So we'll go ahead and enjoy this, and I'll go ahead and interject whenever I feel I need to throughout the interview. So enjoy the content, and don't forget to hit the subscribe and like button. All right.
The wealthiest
So this is
people
what we
in the
have
world
here.
with a giant following, and in this tense conversation.
Now we're going to turn the volume off just for a minute. So basically what we have going on here before we even get into the interview, this is not the interview. This is the coverage that ABC News did in the fallout. All right. So in the fallout, should be able to make this a little bigger here. All right. So everyone can see my pretty face. All right. So if we go back here, basically before we even get into the interview itself, I decided not to log in here. Okay. So my account, this is just a new user on YouTube. Okay. So if you type in Don Lemon, Elon Musk interview, you're going to get the algorithm bullshit to begin with. And what do I mean by algorithm bullshit? If you look at all of the headlines and the videos on YouTube related to this search, you get Don Lemon posts full Elon Musk interview after tech billionaire cancels X contract. That's fine. Elon Musk, Don Lemon get heated in viral sit down. Watch. Viral, yes. Heated, not in the least bit. It's only heated because Elon Musk contradicts the propaganda narratives that Don Lemon throws his way nonstop throughout the course of the entire interview, asking the same question over and over and over and over, even though Elon Musk answers the question methodically, thoughtfully, and to the as open as he can possibly be, in my opinion. Okay? Watch, Don Lemon asks Elon Musk about drug use. So you're automatically getting these very biased results. Okay? Kara Swisher, unfiltered on Elon Musk, the Don Lemon show. Is Elon Musk racist? Okay, so now we have drug use and being a racist. These are the top results for the search, okay? Elon Musk, brutal takedown of Don Lemon. Number one, it wasn't brutal. He was simply answering the questions, all right? Elon Musk didn't take down Don Lemon. Don Lemon took himself down by promoting the corporate media propaganda that he did while at CNN, and he continues to do it while posing, which is why we're here to begin with. Remember, the infiltration of corporate propaganda into the realm of alternative and independent media. Okay, that's what Don Lemon and others represent. Chris Cuomo, Megyn Kelly, Tucker Carlson, they all do. They're infiltrating and taking all of your views because they become popular. They have a large following right off the bat. As soon as they start their own independent, somebody's funding this. All right. And people are in agreement with what Don Lemon brings to the table in terms of his corporate propaganda based on virtue signaling, based on victimhood and external identities like race, like gender, like your sexual preferences, all of these things. It was nonstop. It was disgusting. Right down your throat. Right down your throat, nonstop. And all of the algorithms are going to support this narrative before you actually move all the way down. Elon Musk's biggest mistake in Don Lemon fiasco. Don Lemon confronts Elon Musk and gets his X partnership canceled. So now Don Lemon in this headline by Destiny, whoever that is, creates Don Lemon in the light that he is a victim. This is victimhood. Before you even, and of course, you're going to get triggered. Elon Musk cancels Don Lemon, and this is David Pakman. David Pakman is the biggest pussy. He's a huge liberal pussy, and he may even be a propagandist. He has a large following, and he's a beta male, number one, and number two, he's a huge pussy. A huge pussy. I don't like to say those things. I don't like to belittle people. I'm sure he's a nice person. If you take away the political identity and you take away the propaganda that this person's been influenced by and triggered by himself, I listen to this guy just because it's important to understand that the people around you are batshit crazy, and it leads to people being big pussies. They can't handle the truth. They only see things from their perspective. They don't see things from the commonality or the universal consciousness of humans. They only see things from their external identities. And they believe in victimhood. And they believe in all of these identity pockets that can be collaborated together into one and then be used in the court of law. It can be used in the court of public opinion. They believe in these external identities rather than the things that Elon Musk describes or talks about and describes in this interview with Don Lemon. Don Lemon can't see it. People like Pakman can't see it. They don't see it because they only see things from their externalities. All right, their narcissism. All right, we all have narcissistic tendencies. We all have egos. It's just how big those egos get and how inflated they become with our external bullshit. All right, and so David Pakman is a huge pussy, and he's got a huge ego to go with that pussy. And being a pussy is a big part of his ego, and that's no offense to him. I'm sure he wouldn't take that as offensive because there's nothing he can do about it anyway. People like me, true intellectuals, have a lot to say about it. And when it comes down to the universal consciousness, the morals and values that we live in, we're supposed to live in, this guy can't see it that way, period. And that's what Don Lemon is all about. So Don Lemon humiliated on censorship and Elon interview. And this is coming from Crystal Ball, and who are these both of these people are CIA assets. That's my opinion. I could be wrong, but they either work for the CIA or some independent group who's funded by lobbyists who are, in fact, probably connected to the State Department, the CIA. It doesn't matter. Okay. That's my opinion on these two. All right. Crystal Ball. That's a hell of a stage name. Don Lemon goes on to CNN and he goes on The View about the fallout of having his show canceled on X. Now, he can still go on X and he can still promote his stuff, but his show was canceled that X was hosting, right? So anyway, and then you've got, of course, you have all of this stuff with John Oliver. He's a huge propagandist on HBO. Don Lemon addresses Elon Musk interview on The View. Anyone who is worth their salt except for Dave Packman, understands that The View is corporate propaganda and they brainwash our society, those people who stay at home and actually watch this shit during the day. All right, now you have the full interview. All right. I'm going to go ahead and share it.
Welcome to the Don Lemon Show, everyone. We're still here. In a minute, I'm going to bring you my conversation with Elon Musk, the one that everyone is.
Now, in the first 10 minutes or 12 minutes, you'll see how many times he uses Donald Trump. Donald Trump, Donald Trump, Donald Trump. Are you going to bail out Donald Trump? Are you going to fund Donald Trump? Are you going to donate to the Donald Trump campaign?
Musk decided to scrap the deal.
Nonstop, nonstop, nonstop.
As much as possible within the bounds of the law.
Yeah. So the reason I'm saying that is because there are no conditions on this interview. You said that, we'll speak to you for an hour. I don't like sound bites, so I welcome that. So let's get into it. So we're here in Austin. South by Southwest is going on. We're at the Tesla headquarters. You are in the process of moving SpaceX here, I understand?
No. SpaceX has.
So Don Lemon, number one, comes into an interview basically naked, meaning he didn't do his research. And there are many examples of this. You don't go into an interview without knowing what you're talking about. So what he just said, number one, he's discredited himself for the simple fact that he doesn't know what he's talking about. He just asked a question that he had to be corrected on. He should have known better. You would think that he would ask about these things or at least research it. But apparently that hasn't happened because Don Lemon probably is one of those idiots who reads purely the headline and that's it. And they might skim. You skim before you actually read so that you know what you're navigating through. You get a context about what you're going to be reading. It makes comprehension a little bit easier. You learn that shit in grade school. Anyway, I'm on one today.
Facility in South Texas where we build and launch Starship. And then we have in Bastrop near Austin, we are about to start production at a Starlink, a large Starlink factory for Starlink terminals. But but we're not shutting down any facility.
And by the way, I'm not trying to condone Elon Musk either. I think he's a wolf in sheep's clothing in many ways. Starlink, go watch all the Terminator movies. And then you let me know. Don't forget, they have to tell you what they're doing through Hollywood, through various means. They tell you what they're doing, and it's up to you to either take it as sci-fi, that, hey, it's never going to happen. It's just Hollywood. They have to tell you what they're going to do. It's manufacturing consent. It's called karmic retribution. If they tell you what they're going to do and you consume that idea, which they're going to impose on society, it becomes your problem and your fault because you have consented by consuming their product. And thus, when they lay that stuff out and then bring it out to society, it's your fault. It's not theirs. Keep that in mind. I'm not sitting here trying to give Elon Musk a pass by any means. Don Lemon's just an evil part of the scheme and the propaganda game that is being played on America.
Facilities in California.
Listen, we are here as part of the launch of a news interview show that is going to be on X.com. It's coming as a media industry, as you know, is going through a whole lot of changes.
Yeah.
X has also been affected by that. Where do you see X.com's role in the future of news and journalism, Elon?
Well, I think I see the X as it's really the number one source of news in the world. So it is number one, the number one way that people actually are informed about any kind of news, meaning real-time events, is on the X platform, formerly Twitter. There's nothing even close for real-time news. So we also want to expand upon that. And we have done so with long form content. So instead of just doing what used to be called tweets, you can now do long form posts. You can post an entire essay. In fact, you can now post an entire book to the platform. You can do long form video content.
So basically what he's saying is they're taking X or Twitter, whatever you call it. All right. Now, I don't use Twitter. I do not use Twitter. I stay off of it. All of social media is garbage anyway. I try to use it to my benefit just to get my message out, from fitness and health to emotional control and Although it seems maybe that I'm lacking a little emotional control here. I'm more passionate than anything, and I get this opportunity on this platform, even though it is fluff tube, I like to call it. It's a big fluffer here on YouTube. In any case, what he's saying is you're going to be able to put into context your content. All right. So you can put everything out there. So it's not just some statement that is going to be considered hate speech or something. You can back up that which you say, and people who are worth their salt and have the self-respect, self-dignity, and self-love to go ahead, take action, and take the time, all right, to invest in a little bit of research as to what people are saying so that maybe you can connect with that information and say, maybe they have a point. That's where true discussion comes in the form of proper context. That's what he's saying.
And and people can make their own decision about what they.
So people can make
You didn't mean that
their
I'm
own.
on the left? Did you think that? I thought you were on the left, but I don't know. Well, let's just say, I don't know what the left is or the right is, frankly, these days, because things can be quite polarized.
Because it's a duopoly.
My
We're all
professional
left and
opinion,
right, depending on what time of the day it
you're
is.
more likely to be described as on the left than the right. My sense is you're sort of center left. I don't know. You tell me.
Well, did you ever watch me on CNN, or did you watch?
I saw yeah, not. I saw segments.
Yeah.
But CNN is generally considered left.
Yeah. Why do you say that?
What did I say? CNN is generally considered.
Don Lemon is gone from CNN, and he doesn't realize by now that CNN is propaganda for the left. The left predominantly use victimhood and external identities like your race, gender, sexual preference to control people's emotions and thus predict their behavior, who they're going to vote for, how they spend their money, how emotionally invested they are on the external shit as opposed to themselves. And he doesn't even realize that. In this interview, he claims he's not. He's more center. Don Lemon is not center. He is a far left social propagandist. He's a socialist, and he uses victimhood. He'll use it and contradict himself.
Thinking, and I vote for people based on the issues and how I feel about it, not necessarily because of political leaning of some sort.
Well, I agree with that approach. I think that's generally how.
Unless you politicize your external identities, which is what Don Lemon does.
Which is sort of somewhat arbitrarily bucketed into right or left. But I think most citizens would think that they would agree with some things on the left, but not everything, or agree on some things on the right, but not everything. So that's what I think most people feel, I guess.
How much longer, and maybe the answer is forever, how much longer are we going to have to call it the formerly known as Twitter? I mean, even.
So we've gone into politics. He'll skip around, Don Lemon will, just briefly, but then he'll get right into who's running for president and all of those things. So he segued and then kind of skips around a bit.
Well, that's gone.
I think it's going pretty well so far. We're seeing record usage. We've added a tremendous amount of functionality. I mentioned that it used to be that you could only do short text and maybe a picture or something like that, short video.
Because you said you wanted all points of view, right? It's a digital town square for all.
Yeah.
It's the platform has kind of picked up where some conservative media has left off. That moving to the right, increasingly becoming part of a conservative dialogue, sometimes even conspiracy theories, right?
Conspiracy dialogue, conspiracy theories. Elon Musk is already calling bullshit. If you notice, he's looking to the left. His eyes are not glazing over, but he's already discrediting the question. This is, as soon as you hear the word conspiracy theory, that is corporate media's way of trying to devalue, disintegrate, and completely discard and discredit any alternative media's information suggesting anything other than the mainstream media's bullshit propaganda narrative. That look right there. There are no coincidences in this world as to why I stopped it and paused it here. That look says it all. He already knows it's a bullshit question. As soon as they start, anyone from corporate propaganda media, all right, who mentions conspiracy theory, these people create conspiracy theories. And throughout the interview, you're going to see no one's going to apologize for the Russiagate conspiracy theory The gaslighting that occurred there, the propaganda, manipulation, and mind control that occurred there. No one's going to talk about any of those other things about promoting wars and covering up the 6 wars that Barack Obama started. No one's going to cover that. They're not going to apologize for it, where millions and millions of people are dead and tens of millions of people displaced. No one's going to talk about that. This, and it's all running through Elon's head like, oh, if it were me and I had that look, the things I just said are what's going to be running through my head as this guy's asking his jackass question.
Donald Trump and X were the
Donald
most
Trump.
important people or places or whatever icons when it comes to
Conspiracy theory, Donald
Do you
Trump,
agree with that? How do you feel about that?
and those people. He has to.
There are nonsense articles written all the time, and I certainly wouldn't agree with that one. I put it in the nonsense category. So,
Oh, he just called
the
Don
the
Lemon
objective fact of the matter,
nonsense.
in my opinion, was that that old Twitter was fundamentally a tool of the far left. And that was really, I think, a lot of it was due to being located in San Francisco, Berkeley, and so it
That's a
wanted
very
to
good point
essentially
here.
project the SF Berkeley political dogma worldwide.
You think it was far left?
Yes, I do.
I used to get I got off the platform because I would get so much hate tweets when it was called in, so much hate tweets and
What are hate tweets? Calling you a dumbass and a jerk off? That's not hate. That's being real, because that's what you've been, Don Lemon, for decades for CNN. You know it. I know it. Everyone knows it. That's not hate. He's suggesting that the only forms of hate speech come from people who consider themselves to be conservative value. All right, of the conservative spectrum of politics. That's what he's saying.
just guff from right-wing conspiracy theorists being called every
Right-wing conservative conspiracy theorists. So you have to combine all of those. Trump, right-wing conspiracy theorists, extremists,
Do you agree
domestic
that-
terrorism.
and that he-
That's the Biden administration.
Sort of MAGA
No, I
conspiracy
don't.
theory?
I certainly don't think it's right. The old school Twitter suspended and suppressed the accounts that you'd call on the right 10 times more than they did accounts on the left. And even when they did suspend an account on the left, it was because of arguments between 2 people on the left. The political donations of old Twitter were
99% Democrat.
Does that sound left wing or right wing to you?
The Twitter donations?
Yes. You know, when they look at donations back from a company, if a company donates literally 99% of all donations,
Elon Musk is far better at determining, deciphering, or taking metadata, okay, and putting it together and drawing a rational conclusion or a rational thought, okay? He's a scientist, this guy. All right. Throughout the course of the interview, Don Lemon is going to try to discredit Elon Musk and says there's no evidence that supports that, Elon. Maybe you don't understand, Elon. It's really ridiculous. It's incredibly insane, to be quite frank.
What I'm trying to tell you is that Twitter employees, people at Twitter, their political donations were 99%, literally 99%.
So he's mentioned Donald Trump twice so far.
That's
He's about to lay it on thick.
Group.
My question too, leading into this, is about MAGA. You, and speaking of
There's
MAGA,
3.
you recently met with Donald Trump in Florida. What did you guys talk about?
None of your fucking business.
I was at a breakfast at a friend's place and Donald Trump came by. That's it.
So you didn't go there to meet him?
No, I went to a friend of mine's house and it said Donald Trump's coming by for breakfast. Is that just so you know, like, okay, fine.
What did you discuss?
None of your fucking business.
Let's just say he did most of the talking.
It's like when they interviewed the foreign minister of Russia a few years ago. They said, what did Trump and Putin talk about in private? Oh, it's like asking what they talked about. Did they go sit on the toilet next to each other and talk in private in the bathroom?
Saying anything that he hasn't said publicly, and that was it. It was just a breakfast.
Did he ask you for money?
He didn't.
Did he ask you for a donation?
No,
he didn't. You said you're not going to donate to any candidate.
That's correct.
Why not?
I think
that's his prerogative. How about that? It doesn't matter what Elon's going to say. He's going to say what he has to say. You can listen to it. It's none of Don Lemon's business. This is totally invasive, and it leads up to the narrative
To help pay his bills? No.
to help bail Donald Trump out. Are you going to help him pay his bills by donating to him? Even though people who are watching this probably already know by now that everything's a sham that's going on with Trump. I'm not saying it's crazy that we live in this world where we have victimized. Donald Trump has become a victim of all people. He's the least victim in this world. However, he's become victimized by the government, by corporate propagandists like Don Lemon. And now they're talking about, are you going to bail him out? Even though the premise of these questions, this line of questioning, is based on deception and darkness and lies. And that's it.
No.
You're leaning away from Biden, but you're not going to endorse anyone. It seems like an endorsement of President Trump because there are only two people.
So go ahead and define people now, Don. He's answered your question 5 times in a row.
So we'll see who in the final analysis.
And now Elon's fatigued from the question. He's like, look, I've already answered
At
it.
that point, I may or may not endorse one of the candidates. If I do, I will provide a very detailed explanation of why I'm endorsing one or the other.
At that point, might you contribute or donate?
He just answered the question, Don.
I think it's unlikely.
So you've been posting up a storm, as you always do in the past couple of weeks, about the redesign of the Tesla Roadster.
All right, they talk about this. Is it going to be a flying car? He asked the same question basically like 3 or 4 times.
And Tesla technology to not exactly.
What is it?
It'll have a drive-by-wire yoke, essentially, like a kind of like the way aircraft or modern. So I like playing video games. So
All right, what does Elon Musk like to do?
I mean, lately I've been playing. I mean, I do call the X platform the PvP or player versus player platform.
So he talks about his leisure activities and things like that. He plays video games. He does other things. He says he works about 16 hours a day. That's usually what the time that he invests in engaging his mind.
But that's blowing off steam for you.
And that's the nature of the conversation for a few minutes.
So in fact, I generally, also I'm not a doctor, but I would say, if someone has depression issues, they should consider.
Now, I really wanted to get into this.
Negative chemical state. Yeah.
What's that for?
So
Under the influence of anything?
You know, sometimes.
So now we're going to talk about the use of medications or drugs.
Great importance.
So you do a lot of it at night, like late at night. So when you're doing this, are you sober when you do it? Like,
Almost always, yeah.
Under the influence of anything?
No, I don't drink. I don't really. No.
So you got no drink, no smoke, no nothing. I mean, you smoke pot with Rogan.
I had one puff.
Yeah.
I think anyone who smokes pot can tell I don't know how to smoke pot.
But you've admitted that you have a ketamine prescription.
Haven't we all?
Yeah. What's that for?
Well, I mean, it's pretty private to ask somebody about it.
About a medical prescription. And Don Lemon wants to get personal.
I think it's something I'd say like.
That's what these assholes do. And then they can draw their conclusions as to why they're taking it, how much they take of it. Even though Don Lemon's probably been prescribed so much psychotropic medication, it's not funny since he's such a victim, and you'll find out what I mean by that.
And then ketamine is helpful for getting one out of a negative frame of mind. Well, listen, I in fact, I generally, also I'm not a doctor, but I would say if someone has depression issues, they should consider talking to their doctor about ketamine instead of SSRIs.
Listen, I think that ketamine and drug therapy is increasingly becoming more in the mainstream.
Yeah.
Do you think that you're doing it under a doctor's care, right?
Yeah. Literally a prescription from a real doctor, not like,
Yeah, but do you feel like you ever abuse it?
I don't think so. If you use too much ketamine, you can't really get work done. So I have a lot of.
This is a very important part, so I'm going to pause it. This is something as a cardiac therapist that I would ask a patient. Do you understand this? Under the condition of complete trust between patient clinician privileges here. And Don Lemon has the audacity to talk about abusing it. There have been no reports that Elon has abused drugs. Even with me, in my history with alcohol, let's say, I've abused alcohol in my life. I admit that. It's unhealthy. It is a sign that you have other underlying issues psychologically that you need to evaluate on your own terms. And if you have to talk to somebody about it, that's fine. We all need to communicate with each other about things. We're all going to be in states of depression at times, whether it's short term anxiety that turns to short term depression, which can turn into long term depression that fills your mind with fear and other kind of illusions in your mind that become obstacles to keep you from living your purpose and in a reality that's conducive towards your success and the success of your community, right? And Don Lemon becomes the authority all of a sudden. He's no authority. He's a propagandist.
What? So I'm typically putting in like, 16-hour days. That's normal for me. And it's rare for me to even take off a weekend day. So I don't really have like, a situation where I can be not mentally acute for an extended period of time. Like I can't.
So he's saying I can't afford to be addicted to drugs because I'm busy and I have a lot of weight on my shoulders with investments.
Well, it'd be like,
how often do you take it?
Once every other week.
How often do you take your
But there's
prescribed
gonna be a
medications?
bottle where it says take this dose.
What's it say on the bottle? Listen to Don Lemon here. Listen to him plug away like a fool.
You don't. Yeah, I think it's like I said. I think what if I can?
It's incredible. We're talking about prescription medications.
You can't just think yourself out of. Then ketamine is helpful for getting you out of a depressive mind state.
There is nothing. There is nothing there is nothing that can keep one from getting out of a hole. Nothing. You can do whatever you put your mind to. Never forget that, folks.
I get into a negative sort of chemical mind state once in a while. It's not a common thing. Once in a while it does happen.
Where do you think that comes from?
I think it's just genetic, basically.
You think it's just genetic history?
I think so. Yeah. I mean, some people are just wired to be happy all the time. Some are unfortunately wired to be sad all the time. And in my case,
I agree, but I disagree with that.
Pretty positive and optimistic.
Elon's giving a personal example, and that's okay. He's giving his testimony. I respect that. I respectfully disagree in certain aspects.
Once in a while, it's like a brain storm.
Yeah. Do you ever worry that this may get in the way of your government contracts and clearances, and also and Wall Street as well?
Well, from a standpoint of Wall Street, what matters is execution. Are you building value for investors? Tesla is worth about as much as the rest of the car industry combined from nothing. So that's pretty good.
All right. So this is the whole corporate propaganda bullshit that happened with Trump a number of years ago, where you have a guy like, let's say, Joey Bag of Donuts writing a news article about how Trump is a loser and went bankrupt, and somehow he's still worth $10 billion. Like the guy didn't know what the hell he was doing. The guy's he's brilliant at obviously a first timer with politics. He won the presidency. He can't be stupid. He's not incompetent as a businessman either. Yet that's what Don Lemon is suggesting. That do you concern yourself with the fact that any of this that I've mentioned could get in the way of your government contracts, that it could keep you from being successful to where you become a liability to your investors? How can you say that? He just answered the question and talked about his prescription medication adherence, and you're going to press it like that? That's what these assholes do. That's Don Lemon.
Immigrants, which I think have a very strong bias to, at least everything I've read, it's a very strong bias to vote Democrat. The more that come to the country, the more they're likely to vote in that direction. But it is, in my view, a simple incentive to increase voters, to Democrat voters. And yeah, so the question is like how? So
Don Lemon is wrong in this exchange.
One is that when the census is done, the census is based on all people in an area, whether they are citizens or not. So if there are a concentration of people who came here illegally in a particular state or in a particular state, that state will actually then get an increased number of House seats. So the House seat apportionment is proportionate to the number of people, not the number of citizens. So the illegals overwhelmingly go to places like California and New York, and if you just look at the math, if you look at the apportionment with and without illegals, I believe California would lose. I believe the blue state, there would be a net loss of blue states of approximately 20 seats in the House,
which is a huge deal, and
This
Don
also
Lemon
applies to
disregards it.
the Electoral College. So you say, like, well, this also applies to electing the president, because the electoral votes are also done by apportionment the same way that House seats are done.
But the reason, Elon, the electoral college is in place is to balance that, is so that that doesn't happen. So what you're saying about it is the exact opposite of the reason why the electoral college is there. The electoral college at this point, in our history, gives people who are in smaller states and red states much more of an influence over our elections than people who are in blue states, and the majority of the people in this country. That's what the electoral college does. It actually does the exact opposite of what you're saying.
No, it doesn't. This is where Don Lemon is completely wrong. What he just said is based on the premise that you have an accountability of the total population in your country, in the United States of America. We do not have accountability for people in this country by the tunes. I'm hearing 20 million people. That's a number I heard 5 years ago. So it's probably in between 20 and 30 million people, at least. That's Don Lemon. What he's saying is based on the premise that we have an accountability. We have an accountability problem. We have a deficit of accountability, as a matter of fact, not just with corruption and law breaking by our own legislative government and our judicial government and our executive government at this point, especially in the White House right now. That's what the electoral college is supposed to be about when you have an accountability of people. We do not have an accountability of people, yet these people are still allowed to vote. They're still able to vote. To say that these people aren't voting is naive, and it's quite frankly wrong. I was born, but not yesterday, as I like to say. Anyway, moving forward with this jackassery.
It protects people who are in smaller states and protects people who are in red states.
Well,
The red states, because they tend to be smaller and less populous.
I think that statement is what you said is true, but what I said is also true, which is that if as is the case, a disproportionate number of legal immigrants go to blue states, they amplify the effect of a blue state vote. And the math, as I understand it, you can research this obviously very easily on the
Don Lemon's going to try to just say you're wrong. That's not right.
But my understanding is that there would be that the
But
Democrats
he's
would lose
wrong.
approximately 20 seats in the House if illegals were not counted in the census, and that's also 20 less electoral votes.
Not counted in the census, which means a lack of accountability.
Absolutely, do affect the who controls the House and who controls the presidency. It does not affect the Senate.
In blue states, you're talking about. I
Yeah.
don't believe that your information on that is right. So listen, let's talk more about the Great Replacement, because the first time that you posted on X about this Jewish conspiracy, you ended up
I
apologizing.
didn't call it a conspiracy. I just said that there's a simple matter of incentives. You don't need a conspiracy when you have basic incentives. In my view, there's a basic incentive, there's fundamental, that for the Democrat Party to foster and usher in a large number of illegals. And you don't need a conspiracy in that case, because you have a very basic incentive. You could say I'm wrong about that incentive, but that's my view. I'm not buying into, I didn't buying some great replacement theory. I'm simply saying there appears to be a very clear incentive for Democrats to maximize the number of illegals, because it helps them win elections.
I'm talking about the Great Replacement theory is also part of a Jewish conspiracy theory. And when you did the tweet, or you responded to the tweet about that, you ended up apologizing, and which I think is, it's good that you ended up apologizing. You went to Auschwitz.
Look at this.
Yeah.
That
So you
that
said you learned your
face
lesson.
said
What
it
did you
all.
learn?
I said I learned my lesson.
You said you learned your lesson when you apologized, and you said you went to Auschwitz. You saw what.
So he didn't actually say he learned his lesson. Don Lemon took it as Elon admitting that he had learned his lesson. When Elon decided to go and kind of investigate things with his own two eyes and learn about the circumstances that occurred, 80 and 90 years ago. Okay. That's what the tricks that this asshole uses. People like him. He still does his same corporate media propagandist bullshit.
No, I was already aware of these things. And the nature of my comment that really inflamed people.
Man, what a huge piece of shit Don Lemon is.
Clarify, this is what I'm saying, is that a number of prominent Jewish philanthropists fund groups that they should really take a closer look at funding, because some of the groups they fund, I think, are anti-Semitic.
And people won't admit that. That's Zelensky, for example. Jewish people fund anti-Semitic groups. That's what Zelensky does in the Ukraine. He's a Jew, but he supports and funds neo-Nazis. The Azov Battalion. Everyone knows it who's worth their salt and does the independent research, knows it. And the media can't say that because they're run by certain people. Hint, hint, look into it.
Neo-Nazi trope. It's in the Neo-Nazi manifesto. It's in the Turner Diaries. It's referenced by the Buffalo mass shooter in his manifesto, where 10 people, Black people, were murdered in Buffalo. There's the actual title of the Christchurch shooters manifesto. 51 people in the Muslim mosque were murdered. 23 people murdered in El Paso by a shooter who used the same language that you use in that manifesto when you say Hispanic invasion. Is that not?
I didn't say Hispanic invasion.
You quoted a tweet that called it a Hispanic invasion.
If I quote something, it doesn't mean I agree with anything in it. It's just something that I think this is something what people should consider.
Why would you quote something that you didn't believe?
Because anything I quote is going to have a whole range of statements. Doesn't mean I agree with everything in it.
Do you think if you
Moderate
yourself more, if there was
censor yourself, moderate yourself
on the platform, that you wouldn't have to answer these questions from reporters about the great replacement theory as it relates?
I don't have to answer these questions.
No one has to answer a damn thing to the mainstream media.
Do you think that?
I don't have to answer questions from the reporters. Don, the only reason I'm doing this interview is because you're on the X platform and you asked for it.
Boom.
Otherwise, I would not.
And they called that a heated moment.
So you don't think? Do you think that?
I don't feel that's heated. He's just being straightforward.
These
I
things that
possibly I could care less.
you don't care.
No, I don't.
Why not?
Why don't you care? Why don't you care what the media says? Why don't you care that we're criticizing you and calling you a racist potentially?
Someone who has one of the biggest social media and biggest information platforms in the world, you don't care? You don't think that you have any X.com, or you have any responsibility to the truth or moderating the platform?
You're with the media, and I think the media is not truthful.
Boom.
Just
because the media
truth in general.
he is gaslighting Elon Musk. He's accusing Elon Musk of that which he has been responsible for since working with CNN.
In order for community notes to surface and provide
Boom.
information about what somebody posts, and my posts are equally subject to this. I've been community noted many times. In order for community notes to surface, people who have historically disagreed must agree in order for a community note to surface. And all of the code for community notes is open source. All of the data is open source, so you can completely recreate it from scratch. The way to build trust is transparency.
I have noticed community notes. I think that you are right about that, and I do think community notes are helpful. I think any type of
Nobody cares what you think, Don.
You recently called content moderation, though, a digital chastity belt. Do you think that you believe that X and you have some responsibility to moderate hate speech on the platform?
I think we have a responsibility to adhere to the law.
Moderation is a code word for censorship. It's a propaganda word, he says.
So that's why we open source our algorithm. I think once you start going beyond the law, now you're putting your thumb on the scale. And we don't want to put our thumb on the scale.
It doesn't concern you that hate speech has gone. Research shows that it's gone up on the platform.
Define hate speech, Don.
I believe that is false. In fact, the research that I've seen says it went down.
The study from the Institute of Strategic Dialogue found that anti-Semitic tweets doubled from June 22 to February 2023. One study reported that as many as 80%
Define
of
anti-Semitic.
posts reported for hateful content
Saying something that has truth and value
hate speech
in context
on
to the world we
platform.
live in.
It's up.
So what they will typically do is they will count the number of posts, but not count the number of views. So what matters is, was that post given high visibility, or what did like one person see it? And if you look at the number of views of how many times was hate content viewed on our platform, it is down substantially.
Yeah. Well, that's not what the study shows. And you said you like transparency. I'm going to show you this.
Hate speech
Don, you can get
because
somebody that's
something
more-
somebody posted hurt somebody's feelings. It could be based on anything. Microaggressions.
Anti-Semitic,
That's what political
racist
correctness.
tropes and tweets.
This is what political correctness was all about 5 and 10 years ago. The more politically correct you are, the more you have to moderate and censor yourself in conversation. So things that are important, that are difficult conversations to have. This is what Jordan Peterson talks about often, is that there are difficult conversations that have to be had, and you have to risk offending someone to get your point across, regardless, especially if you're speaking tactfully and you're being respectful. Other people take it offensive, and therefore you shouldn't be able to say it. It can be termed hate speech or defined as hate speech.
Radicalized.
So Don, you love censorship, is what you're saying.
No, I don't love censorship.
Then why are you asking?
I believe in moderation, but I don't believe in
Censorship moderation is a propaganda word for censorship.
Moderation is a propaganda word for censorship.
Look, if something's illegal,
F and A,
we're gonna
man.
take it down. If it's not illegal, then we're putting our thumb on the scale and we're being censors.
You're putting your thumb on the scale for moderating hate speech. I mean, you don't put out child pornography. That's not, it's illegal. That some people would say that's considered censorship. I'm just saying, you,
No, I literally, Don, you know, I literally said, if something is legal, okay, we will obviously remove it.
okay,
But if it is not legal, the laws in this country are put forward by the citizens. We're a democracy. If those laws put in place,
Which Don Lemon keeps saying, our democracy is in danger. It's being threatened by hate speech.
if you go beyond
Yet this guy's talking about censorship and getting rid of your constitutional rights,
agreed.
which means
With the
that the people have no
But
say
if you are doing
in
something
things that the government decide to censor and ban.
ultimately leads to killing, you don't feel you have any responsibility not to do that? When the people who are doing it
I think the
admittedly are
mainstream
saying
media
this,
Don Lemon and people like him are responsible for the deaths and atrocities of tens of millions of people in the last 2 decades alone. Okay. This guy is projecting and gaslighting and accusing Elon Musk of that which he himself, this sick, disgusting figure that you're seeing here, is responsible for. Gaslighting, typical gaslighting.
did you not see those?
You said promote. If content is on the platform, that doesn't mean we promote it.
But that wouldn't be on a platform for mainstream media at all.
No, but you can think of that's because the mainstream media has like whatever 20 articles a day. We have 500 million posts today.
Okay,
500
understood.
million.
Does it bother you? How do you feel about that when you see it?
I obviously disagree with that. I think it's not good at all. It's terrible.
But you don't want to get rid of it on the platform, or at least moderate it.
The laws, what you're suggesting is censorship that goes beyond the law. And what I'm saying is, I guess have.
Don Lemon, you can't deny that.
Censorship that goes beyond the law, and you do. We have a difference.
And he shudders his eyes and rolls his eyes.
These are your own rules on your own platform.
And he continues to hammer.
On your platform.
Hammer it, hammer it, hammer it.
You said, listen, we allow everything, but that's not what your content rules say. And that's why I'm asking you, why are they still there? Your own content policy. That's why I'm asking you that, not because.
Which part of our content policy says that we should delete these things?
Your content policy talks about hate speech.
Yes, we don't promote hate speech.
And so you don't consider that hate speech.
I guess you're not understanding what I'm saying. If there's you can find you can sign up right now and do 100 things that are hateful. But if nobody reads it, it doesn't matter. So you can think of X as being, it's much like the internet. It's not some tiny publication with like 20 articles a day. It's 500 million.
But everyone has the opportunity to read it, Elon. It's not
I
that-
think
that you
everyone has
don't
the
know who's-
opportunity to read the internet. Are you suggesting we should shut down the internet?
No, but you don't own the internet. I'm asking you about you and your responsibility and your platform. And so I see how you feel now.
All right.
don't
So
agree.
then stop asking the same question 50
Yes,
times.
you want censorship and I don't.
No, I don't want censorship.
Yes, you do.
I want responsibility. I think
Responsibility by censorship.
No, if I want a
Too
censorship,
much censorship so bad you can taste it.
no, that's.
Yes.
It's not true. I think that.
Not
that's right and
true.
wrong.
Even though that's what he's saying.
And I think
Tell
that,
you what censorship.
and I think that when you have a platform
Gotta love
as
it.
big as yours and as powerful as yours and as influential as yours, and you are a person of consequence to the world.
Yeah,
for
like
what you do,
CNN
that there is
and
a certain
propaganda,
responsibility
corporate
that goes
media
along with what you
propaganda.
do on your platform and what you put out to the world. And I think that's important. You don't see that responsibility.
I think
The virtue signaling.
we have a responsibility to
The virtue signaling is
adhere to the
palpable.
law. And if people want the law changed, they should go to their election representative and get the law changed, and then we will adhere to the law. Okay,
Yeah,
but
that's
once
called
it's
representative
beyond the law,
democracy, right?
That is us deciding to be censors.
So,
And I'm against censorship. I'm in favor of freedom of speech.
Yeah.
And freedom of speech only is relevant when people you don't like say things you don't like. Otherwise, it has no meaning.
but I do think that there should be guardrails. And I believe in free speech. as
Yeah,
much as
but
you-
there have to be guardrails. That
I
you
don't
have
disagree.
he believes
I
there
don't
you
agree
should
with
be able to censor
a
people.
lot of what you put out on social media, but I will fight for your right to be able to say it.
Great.
Okay.
You
so
could have said
this
that
next
5
one,
minutes ago, Don.
That's been a target of yours lately on X. There was a repost of Ben Shapiro that you claim that DEI is killing people. Specifically, you point to medicine. You claim that DEI.
All right, this is going to be our last part of the interview
Do you really
here.
believe this to be true? And what
This is
evidence
the
do you have to
epitome
support
of
What I was referring to there
the
was
liberal
that,
left-wing
below the status of
socialist
doctors,
narrative
so that they, you know, if the
by
test
which
doctors
identity
are,
politics are used.
then the probability of them making a mistake and killing someone is obviously going to be higher.
Wait, say that again. I'm not sure I understand what you said. I want to.
You heard what he said, Don.
Yes,
You're not
if-
stupid.
If the standards for passing medical exams and becoming a doctor, or especially something like a surgeon, if the standards are lowered, then the probability that the surgeon will make a mistake is higher. They're making mistakes in their exam.
And watch Don Lemon try to discredit him.
That result.
I work in the medical
What
field.
evidence do you
That's
have
accurate.
They're lowering the standards.
What
There's
evidence?
no evidence.
I believe there is.
There's no evidence of that, Elon. What is the evidence?
He's making a definitive
Believe that-
statement. There is
that
no
they
evidence.
lowered the standards at Duke
That's not
University,
accurate,
and that is
Don.
what the article
That's
said.
what CNN does.
There's no evidence about lowering standards, and I think that there is.
Believe that is a false statement you're making.
Okay,
Mhm.
well, we'll figure it out.
Yeah.
Yeah, you
Here's the
should.
thing else. When this is posted on the X platform, it will be.
There's no evidence of weapons of mass destruction. Now, was there, Don?
Right, so people can then make their own
Stupid.
decision based on the replies, the rebuttals, and the community notes.
I think that's fair, but I do think that on this particular topic, I do think that you and Ben Shapiro are reaching in about this, because there was what Ben posted said that he gave instances of people who were deliberately harming people. Nowhere in the thread does Ben suggest at all, I should say, that anyone is being killed as a result of DEI. That's purely speculative. There's research on DEI in medicine, and there's no evidence that standards are being lowered,
Okay,
that DEI is affecting medicine. Actually, like
Okay.
only 5% of doctors are Black, and a small percent.
yeah, well, I think you'll find that when this is posted to the X platform, that people will reply to it with evidence.
Okay.
Maybe I'm wrong, let's see.
Okay, so, but that's my whole thing about moderation. Maybe you're wrong, but you'll put it out there. You don't know if it's right. Do you think that your responsibility to make sure something is right before you, the person who owns it, Elon Musk, is a huge figure in the world, that you should know that it's true, that some of their.
What Elon's going to reply to, or how he's going to reply, is that he's going to say, look, people are going to comment on the things that are posted, whether it's 100% accurate or not. And the people who usually post to comment on such things usually have their ducks in a row, meaning they have their data and content to back up their comment. And therefore, you can do the research. If someone shares information, you can go and either confirm or be able to deny that which was brought forward in the comment. So it's not up to the big entity of X to moderate those comments. Rather, you take the comments and the content and the data that's being provided and you put it in the data set. This is called the scientific method. This was the problem with COVID-19 when you had doctors and scientists being censored and banned on every platform, which meant that the data set was being censored. All right. Therefore, it's pseudoscience. It's not actual scientific method. Okay. That was the whole problem. Believe in science, believe in science. Hold on. You have to complete the data set. We are leaving a shitload of data and information out of the data set. Therefore, the data set's incomplete. And so you're not getting an accurate and responsible outcome to that which you're investigating.
People at X who can get research for you before you put something out there like that. That's not necessarily true, even in other examples.
If I say something that is inaccurate, I'm immediately corrected on the platform. That's the advantage of a real-time system like X. So
Without censorship.
People correcting me, there'll be a community note that will correct me, which is attached to the actual post itself.
You think as many people read
yes.
You think as many people read that as it reads your tweet?
Yes, in fact,
yes.
There's a community note that
the people who have the self-love, self-respect, and self-dignity to do so, who have woken up. This is the real wokeness, not the bullshit wokeness of there's black inequity and inequality. And it's brought to you by a corporation who creates the environment that perpetuates the very inequity and inequality that you're referring to begin with. We have the self-respect and self-dignity to do our research. That's what we mean by doing your research. Go do your research.
happens.
Put your external identity away and go do your research.
Post, we will notify them that there is now.
Don't be afraid to be wrong and admit you were a jackass.
So
I have to admit it every day of my life.
That doesn't happen. Conventional media makes false statements all the time with nobody ever hears the correction.
Correct.
When I was in
like Don Lemon, who will never look.
If I got something wrong, or if someone got something wrong,
listen to this lie
that I was on, it was corrected. And
that's 100% not true. He will never correct himself for being wrong with Russiagate, for any Clinton conspiracy that they rejected and neglected. All right, never about the Ukraine war. He'll never tell you the truth. Never correct himself. Never, ever, ever, ever.
I can't speak for anyone else.
I don't think that's a universal situation.
Okay.
Correct.
So
He's saying that I don't believe that's accurate, but I won't insult you on your own show.
DEI is causing medical standards to be lowered. Do you actually believe people are dying because of that?
I believe
because he's about to make this about a race thing.
If we lower the standards for
which you already tried to.
I'm saying if we lower the standards, but do you believe people are dying because the standards are being lowered?
I don't. I think that is yes an issue, but it could become an issue.
Okay, but the actual evidence in history shows the exact opposite. If you look at how minorities are treated by the medical system, most doctors now are white, and there are lots of mistakes in medicine. So you're saying that white doctors have bad medical care? I'm trying to understand your logic here when it comes to DEI, because
he's just saying doctors in general. Take the identity out of it.
So if the standards, like let's say, I think that particular thing was referring to surgeons. Let's say a surgeon is asked to, a surgeon in training is asked to do a series of
a surgeon, not a black surgeon, not a white surgeon, not an Indian or Asian surgeon, a surgeon.
If that happens,
not a male, not a female.
To be a surgeon, the probability that someone will die
make a mistake
at some point is high.
Okay, I understand that, but that's a hypothetical. That doesn't mean it's happening.
I didn't say it's happening.
I said it could potentially happen, so we talk about it.
I said if we lower status, people will die.
Don Lemon is just
I respond to
he's a clown.
Put something out there that has not happened. Because I could say
I don't want it to happen. I think we don't want to lower those standards.
Okay, if you look at the history of the medical industry, especially when it comes to Black Americans, it shows the exact opposite. If you look at the Tuskegee experiment and on, only 5% of doctors are in America are Black. All of them are white. So are you saying that if the majority of doctors are white, are you saying that and there are still these inequities, right? And there's still mistakes. Are you blaming DEI for that?
No, I'm very basically saying that if we lower standards for what it takes to become a board certified surgeon, or, you know, an oncologist
So
or
he's
something,
answering, he's finding different ways to ask the question, the same question.
mistake causes someone to
And
die,
Elon has literally
then
just
there's
answered the
more
question
people die than if we don't
the
lower
same way
standards.
multiple
We
times.
should not lower the standards.
Why do you think they're lowering the standards for minority doctors or women doctors or?
That's what that's what that article.
That's what the article is about.
At Duke University.
Okay. The evidence that I have shows that that's not true.
Yeah,
So
well, you're from
after the
CNN.
door-
So if you're getting your
door
information
office-
from people like CNN, you might want to reconsider your options of where you get your external
The
information.
respondent, of course, claiming that the average
Don.
HBCU grad was less intelligent than the average airline pilot, and stated that it will take an airplane crashing and killing hundreds of people for them to change this crazy policy of DIE. I don't know if did you misspell it on purpose, which meant it should be DEI. Do you believe that women and minority pilots are inherently less intelligent and less skilled than white male pilots?
No, I'm just saying that we should not lower the standards for them.
Okay,
Okay, that's what he's saying, Don.
there's no evidence that standards are being lowered when it comes to the
Okay.
airline industry.
You've repeatedly said that there's no evidence that standards are being lowered, and watch the replies showing all the evidence that it is.
Replies so on social media or on Twitter are not necessarily fact and evidence.
No, they will
That's people's
They will
opinion.
cite,
Okay,
in the replies to this, you will see how often the information is cited showing that indeed there are significant cases where standards.
People who have the self-dignity, self-respect, and self-love and the discipline to go into detail and go into depth with actual evidence and post it along with their comment. Those are the responsible people that Don Lemon is suggesting that we should modify and censor, or moderate rather, and censor. That was a big deal with COVID. Censorship, even though people were providing evidence. You're not a doctor. You're not a published scientist. Therefore, whatever you're posting has no credibility.
absolutely. And I do hope that happens.
And that's what this guy did. He perpetrated mass censorship. You are wrong, Don, as you always are.
Conversation debate. This is what we should be doing.
The question is, are you wrong on purpose?
And then they'll be proven.
Are you being deceitful and deceptive on purpose? Or are you just an ignorant fool?
Landed the
I
plane
think it's the first
despite
one.
the major malfunction with the equipment. Boeing has taken responsibility for that incident, saying that it was caused by a faulty door panel. So I'm not sure what that had to do with lowering the standards for pilots when it was a
No, it's not lowering standards for pilots. It's the incentive structure. I believe at Boeing changed to include DEI as a fundamental executive incentive. But in my view, it should be purely about passenger safety.
Okay, but do you understand?
But it turned out it was about production, which the FAA just recently was on with Lester Holt. And the FAA head guy said that it was less about safety and more about production. Money, in other words.
Look, I'm saying we should not lower standards.
But do you don't?
That's it.
And Don continues to try to make it about
agree that you
identities.
shouldn't lower standards.
Right.
But you're implying that they're lowering standards because of people of color or women, because someone is not a white male. You're saying that they're less skilled and less intelligent. That's what
No, I'm not saying that. I'm simply saying that they are.
Then why would they be lowering the standards?
I don't know. Why are they lowering the standards?
Just so you know, 5% of pilots are female, 4% are black. So you're talking about this widespread takeover of minorities and women, but that's not actually true.
I'm not saying there's a widespread takeover.
He just put words in Elon's mouth.
Certain people. And you don't believe in DEI, right? Do you not believe in diversity, equity, and inclusion?
I think we should be treat people according to their skills and their integrity, and that's it.
Do you know that studies show? Yeah, well, we can look them up. So your reaction to studies show and understand, right? Because I always like to say, I always like to point to an exact study, right?
Sure.
Something that is factual. It's the same thing when you talk about, well, let's see what the replies are on Twitter or on X.
Yeah, so
I feel the same. I feel the same way about that. But this is what studies have shown, and people will reply and they'll say that companies with more diversity and their leadership teams have reported higher innovation rates than those with lower diversity or low diversity, and they're better companies and they make more money. This whole idea about DEI, if you go woke or whatever, you go broke, that's not necessarily true. People with diverse leadership teams and diverse workers make more money and more innovative.
Like I said, my view is that the only basis for promoting somebody should be their skills, talents, and their integrity, and that's it.
I want to ask you about there's a federal government EEOC. They are also currently involved in a lawsuit against Tesla that alleges that there's a history of widespread racial harassment against Black Tesla employees, as well as a pattern of retaliation for speaking out. What do you say to that?
I don't believe that is true. I think we've got a very good like if you walk around the Tesla Fremont plant, I think it's a very good atmosphere. In fact, I practically lived there for 3 years trying to make the production work.
Were you aware, if you lived there, were you aware of such behavior?
I never saw it.
So you're saying that this is not true, it's not happening?
Well,
It's speculation.
20,000 people. So you say like, if there's over 20,000 people in one building, well, is everyone going to behave publicly? No. Did I see any situations that I thought were improper? I did not.
Let's talk about trans rights and the woke mind virus, because you talk about that a lot. You're right about that a lot on the thing.
You are the woke mind virus. His corporate witchcraft is a vector by which the virus, the mental virus of derangement, can be injected into your perception of reality. It's called witchcraft, corporate witchcraft.
What originally it was meant to mean. It's just being aware of inequities in society and being aware.
That's not what woke means. Woke means being aware of the world in which we live, both socioeconomic and demographically speaking.
But
not that bullshit identity politic stuff.
Trying to make everything a race issue is, I think, divisive and corrosive to society.
Which is Don Lemon, the epitome. He's the epitome of that.
Issues, which is what I'm.
Yeah, race or gender or whatever.
You think that society blames everything on racism now?
It blames a lot of things on it, and yeah.
Society doesn't. Corporate media does.
Yeah.
Why?
I think we should not make this a constant subject. We need to move on. I think we just
instead of rehashing the past, all right, and regrowing the past by continuously bringing it up as if that's the problem, as if racism in this country is the problem. It's the problem because of people like Don Lemon. I'm going to go ahead and stop my share here. So I just wanted to give my 2 cents. This was my initial reaction anyway upon watching this interview. It was disgusting, but it is necessary to watch. It doesn't upset me. I am passionate about a lot of these things because a lot of people are going to watch it. And especially if you don't have a YouTube account, or you do and you type up Elon Musk interview with Don Lemon, those are the things you're going to get. Okay. Initially, the algorithm is just biased 100%. You're going to get the corporate media's perspective and analysis of that interview, and the alternative perception is going to be down the list. It's kind of like how Facebook runs, Facebook or Instagram. When you uselessly scroll, you're not going to run into a lot of independent-minded thinking on social media as soon as it's posted. You might not ever see it. You might not be in the algorithm of that person. And that's how it usually runs. I don't get feedback for 2 or 3 days sometimes, depending on what the content is on my Facebook profile, for example. even if I'm just talking about fitness and health, and I'm not saying anything that is controversial or anything, or controversial not to me, but to the mainstream of consciousness out there. All right. So with that being said, I hope you enjoyed it. For those who hung in there to the end, I highly recommend watching the entire interview, and you can draw your own conclusions. I'm not here to try to tell you what to think, but at the same time, what I'm thinking about when I see this interview from my perspective and from my perception of reality. I'm not living in this la la land. All right. I just dip my toes in it to see what everyone else around me is going to think, what they're thinking. Okay. When I'm out in public, the majority of people are thinking from the mainstream of consciousness. It's a very myopic way of thinking about the world that we live in, because things are not what they've been told. The world is not what we've been told it is. And so that's a huge deal. And that's why people like me come on here and risk our personal and professional livelihood. And I'm fine with it. It takes courage to do it. You're going to lose friends along the way, and you're going to be ridiculed through self-righteous indignation from people who are narcissistic, and they can't they can't afford to give up the life of ultra consumerism and hedonism that they've acquired from the time they were born. If you're fortunate enough to grow up in the United States of America. All right. So with that being said, everyone, enjoy your day. Stay independent, stay resilient, have that self respect, self love, and self dignity to always look into the matter, put that identity down, and do not let it affect or influence your path towards the truth and what's actually going on. All right. So take care. God bless.